Hello and welcome to PACT's very first online adoption information event. I'm Emma Owen and I'm delighted to introduce Mandy Davis, who is our adoption team manager, and we are coming to you live from PACT's head office in Reading. So today we're going to be talking about adoption, who can adopt, how long it takes, what does the process involve, and we'd really welcome your questions. So please do comment below if you'd like to ask us a question, or if you prefer, send it by private message, and we'll do our very best to answer those questions before the end of the session today. So let's talk about adoption. So Mandy, to start off with, who can adopt? Who are we looking for?
Well, actually, most people can adopt or certainly consider adopting. There's quite a few myths around about who can and who cannot adopt. But actually, we'd like to hear from lots of people, and we can always have that discussion with you as to, what our criteria is. But really, broadly speaking, there's no upper age limit. I think lots of people think that there is. There is a lower age limit, so you do have to be over 21. But the upper age limit, really, I like to say it's about a common sense approach, but it's what we're looking for is people that can see the children through to adulthood and support them through their lives. So, we're looking for people that are fit and healthy, people that are married, people who are single, people from all different kinds of ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds. And really what we're looking for is adopters that can represent the children who are waiting for adoption.
Okay, thank you. So do you have to own your own home, for example?
No, again, I think that's another one of the myths. You don't have to own your own home. We have people that come to us that do, that, have, some people have no mortgage, but we have people that have mortgages, or they could be renting. What is important now, I must say, is that we need a spare room. So the child or children that you adopt will need to have a room of their own.
Okay. And what about if somebody wanted to adopt more than one child? Do they need a spare room for each child?
Well, first of all, we'd be thrilled if people are interested in adopting more than one child. We do, if it's right for the children, we do like to keep siblings together. And for a variety of different reasons, the majority of people that come forward only want to adopt one child or feel they can only offer a home to one child. So ideally, they'd have a room of their own. But it's not always the case. For some siblings who are in foster care, they may already be sharing a bedroom, and that might be right for them. If they're a same-sex sibling, 2 girls, 2 boys, that could be fine, for many, many years. For others, we might look at, initially sharing, and then you might have plans to move, and you could separate them into their rooms. So, talk to us. It could be that, even if you want a sibling group of, say, 2, you may only have one spare room, and that might work.
Okay. So what's the first steps then for somebody who's thinking about adoption, would like to find out a bit more? What do they do first?
Well, I think, listening to this will obviously help. Looking on the internet, there's lots and lots of different things about adoption, lots of information out there. And then I'd encourage for people to come to an information event. We hold them here in Reading and in our other offices. And that's an opportunity really to hear a lot more about adoption and the children who are waiting. And also, I think one of the most special bits, the most important bit really, is hearing about the adopters and hearing the adopters' stories. So I'd say that's the first step, and it just gives you a bit of groundwork, that foundation just to start building on, because, it is, there's a lot to learn. And, you've got to start somewhere. So getting those first bits in place is really important. So come to an information event, and then after that, the next kind of step would be to meet with us to, again, give you some more information, but also for us to gather some more information from you to make sure that adoption's right for you, or it's right for us as an agency for you, or it's the right time for you to adopt.
Okay, and then what happens next? I mean, what is the adoption process? What does it involve?
Yeah, again, I think you hear kind of different stories, don't you, good and bad, about, the adoption process taking too long, not taking long enough. Wherever you apply to adopt, it's the same process. So you come along to PACT, you'd have your initial interview with a social worker, and then the next step is what we call stage 1. And that's where we get all your checks and references. So quite rightly, we check you out. We need to do that. We do a police check, an enhanced DBS check. We get references from you, so personal references and family references, employers' references. So they're kind of the checks that we do. We also ask you to come to one of our training sessions, a preparation group, which is 4 days in that first stage, which, like I said a little bit earlier, there's a lot to know about adoption. And we don't expect everybody to know at the beginning. So that's a really good opportunity to meet other people that have adopted, meet other people who are on the same kind of journey as you are, going to adoption, and learning about, why the children that come into care, who are the children that need adoption, what does that mean for you as an adoptive parent, what are the extra bits you need to know, what support will you get from us, if you adopt. Thinking about birth parents and possible contact with them. So it's really a great chance to get to know other people and to learn about adoption. So that's done in your stage 1. That usually takes around 2 months. So our aim is to finish that within 8 weeks. All being well, and we get through that part, you move on to stage 2. All of this is done in conjunction with you. We're very transparent. You'll have a social worker who will talk you through the process. And that social worker then will pick up with you in stage 2. And this is the assessment part. So this is where they will usually visit you just at your home. Sometimes you can come to the office, but usually they'll come to your home about 6 to 8 times. If you've got children in your family, they're adopted or birth children, they'll talk to them and just get to know more about you. And the assessment that they'll do over those 6 to 8 weeks starts off really looking at your background. Who are you? Where do you come from? And what is it about your childhood that makes you the person that you are today? And I think we all agree that we are who we are today because of what's happened to us. It's not about tripping anybody up. It's not about trying to make you fail in any way. It's really about learning about you. So things about your childhood, your education, your relationships, your interests. So running all the way through your life. And then the second part of the assessment, I'd say, looks much more about the children. So we're looking at what are the types of children that you think you can consider as an adopter. So that would be numbers, age, but also kind of backgrounds of children. What experiences have they had that you feel you can manage or maybe can't manage? And so by the end of it, we've got a really good sense of not only who you are, and if you're a couple, who you are as a couple, as a family, but also those children that you feel you'll be able to offer a home to, and whose needs you can best meet. That report then, which you see, again, it's all transparent. There's nothing hidden from you. That report then goes to our panel, and they make a recommendation as to your suitability to adopt. Great. It's quite a lot, isn't it? I feel like I've talked quite a lot there, sorry.
And so after that comes the exciting bit.
Well, yeah, I like to. It's interesting when you've been doing this for a long time. Each bit, people say, "Oh, this is the most stressful. This is most nervous, or this is most exciting." But I think once you've got through there and you're through panel, it is about finding those child or children for you. So yeah, I mean, for me, that is that's the most exciting. It can be scary. But you're not on your own. You've got your social worker who knows you by this time really well. We've also got family finding team that help you find that child or children for you. So at that point, as an agency, we get children from all over the country. So your family finding social worker will be looking at profiles from it could be anywhere. It could be Newcastle with children, Southampton, Cornwall, Devon. Anywhere, because it's really about finding the right child or children for you. It's not just, I think sometimes people think, well, I'm the next on the list, so we'll get the next child on the list. And it's really not about that. It's so important that we get the right match. So you start looking at profiles of children. And working with the doctors for many years, you You know, some people will say that, you know, that first one they saw, they knew it was the one. Other people will say, well, it took, you know, 10 before they knew that it was the one. But again, you're not on your own. We completely support you with that part.
Okay. And what sorts of children are waiting to be adopted?
Yes, it's a good question. There, at the moment, it's quite sad for children in that we have a lot more children waiting than we do adopters. So there's a lot less choice. It's good for adopters because you've got more choice of children, but from a child's point of view, you know, there's less adopters. So we've got a lot of children waiting at the moment. I mentioned before about sibling groups. So sibling groups of 2, we're finding are waiting a long time. But sibling groups of 3 and more, you know, it's so difficult to find. And I understand why, you know, 3 is, or 4 or 5 is a lot to take on. But I think, you know, those are the children that are waiting the longest, often because we have less adopters coming forward that could or would be able to manage that. That's also very similar with children from BME backgrounds, so Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. And when I'm saying that, really what I'm meaning is Black African and Black Caribbean and dual heritage, mixed heritage children. Again, because we try and reflect the adopters in the children, so we try and match the children as much as we can in lots of different ways, one of them being their ethnicity or religion or culture. We tend to get less people from the Black communities coming forward to adopt. So those children sadly tend to wait a little bit longer. Obviously, in addition to that, we do have babies. There's a myth that we don't have babies. We do. There's lots of babies that wait for adoption. They often come with their own complexities. So often birth parents are drug or alcohol users, so there can be some uncertainties about their future development. We have older children as well. So often people say, what's the kind of oldest age of a child being placed for adoption? And I would say usually maximum would be about 10, but most children that we place for adoption are much younger than that, under 5 or the 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 age group.
Great. And so what support do families get from PACT once they've adopted?
Yeah, so they will have their social worker that hopefully will have seen them all the way through the assessment. So when the child or children are first placed, they'll have that social worker. The child will also have a social worker from their local authority. So those first few days, there'll be at least 2 social workers that will be there, you know, on hand to offer support. Within PACT, in addition to that, before the adoption order is granted, but even after the adoption order is granted, we have a Strengthening Families team, which is a team of therapeutically trained social workers that can come in and give that additional support if you need it. So sometimes some children may struggle with building an attachment. You know, they may have lived with their foster care for a year, birth family for 2 years. And, you know, we've just got lots of skills within the organisation to help promote that attachment. Or it could be something about the child's behaviour. It's just learning some strategies. You know, I think as parents, sometimes we could all do with learning some strategies of how to manage different situations. So that's open to all of our adopters. Alongside that, we've got our online adopters hub, which is fantastic. You've got peer-to-peer support there. You've got webinars. There's lots of information that you can access. You don't have to, you know, it's not office hours, and often, you know, as parents, we know things happen when it's not office hours. So it's a really great resource, and as far as I know, unique. Certainly unique to any of the organisations around here, but for PACT, it's a really good resource that we have. As well as that, we've also got, and we could just spend all the time we've got talking about the support, so I'll try and be quick. We've got our fax service as well, which is our therapeutic service that offers that next level. So within that, we've got psychologists that work for us, we've got therapists that work for us, art therapists, DDP, Theraplay. So, and they're all across the country. So wherever our doctors are, we've got a therapist, we've got something that we could probably access to give you support. Just Also, we do lots of training. So training, I mentioned the training before about the preparation. There's training in stage 2 as well. And once your children or child is placed, well, and even after the adoption order, we have ongoing training on things like talking to your child about adoption. We have an attachment-focused parenting course, which is an 11-week course. But we also have fun days, which are great, and other kind of social things and things that we can just bring our adopters together and the children just to have some really good times.
Brilliant. Okay, let's see. Have we had any questions? We've had one by private message. What about taking time off when you've adopted? What's the situation with taking time off work afterwards?
Yeah, it's a good question. If you're in a couple or if you're a single applicant, we would need you to be able to take at least 6 months off work. Ideally, it's a year, and what we find is local authorities who are placing the children would prefer a year, but it would be at least 6 months we need you to take off.
Okay. And what about pets? What's the situation if a family who want to adopt have got pets? Is there any rules about that?
It always makes me laugh. We call it a pet questionnaire. So
your pet have to fill it in.
Even your pets are assessed. I know it's, it depends. For some children, who have got allergies, obviously we can't place with pets. For some children, they will have had pets in their birth family, in their foster home, and we know things like dogs and cats can really help a child feel settled and help with kind of attachment and learning, kind behaviour. So we do risk assess the animals just to make sure that they're safe around children, and obviously if they that they're up to date with vaccinations, that kind of thing.
Okay. And would you recommend that people thinking about adoption need to get a bit of experience, or with children? What sort of things would you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. Lots and lots of any involvement you can. I mean, most people have got friends and family with children within their network, and that's great. If you can increase that, that's brilliant. So getting them over for sleepovers, looking after them on their own. We talk about having like a toolbox where you're getting all these tools to use when you've got your children living with you. In addition to that, we do recommend that you get some voluntary work. So being with children that aren't in your family, who aren't your friends and family children, and that's for a couple of reasons really. And one of those is, your friends and family, children in your network probably like you. They know you, they like you, they're probably going to behave. You're not going to be tested as you might when you first meet your adopted child, they won't know you, and to get used to being with children who don't know you and learning how to interact and using different methods and strategies to be with children, I think is really helpful.
Okay. Thank you. We've had a question. What is expected of adopters in terms of income and accommodation?
Okay, so again, I think this is one of the myths, that you have to be, rich to be able to adopt, and that's not the case at all. There's not, it's not all Madonnas going around, honestly having children. It's a common sense approach that you have to be financially stable. So if you've got masses of debts, then now probably isn't the right time. Try and get those sorted out. We know that children cost money. So day to day, you need to make sure you've got enough money to be able to parent a child. So, feed it, clothe it, after school clubs, not, big holidays or anything like that. But as a parent would. And that goes the same, with accommodation I mentioned a bit earlier. The accommodation has to be kind of free of hazards. It's got to be big enough, have a spare room, have somewhere for the child to be able to play or study, have some open space. It doesn't necessarily have to be a garden. It could be, we have people in flats and they've got, the local park they can go to.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. If you like what you've heard, then we would very much like you to find out more on the PACT website, pactcharity.org. You can download a brief guide to adoption, which goes over some of the things that Mandy's been saying and more besides. You can call our inquiries line, which is 0300 456 4800, and our inquiries team can take your call and answer any other questions that you have. So if we had one more extra question about vaping, what's the thinking about people who use vape?
Yeah, because smoking is a question that comes up a lot. Can you adopt if you smoke? We're guided by BAF, which is British Association of Adoption and Fostering Medical Advice guidelines, which say that we cannot place a child for adoption who's under 5 with anybody who smokes. I would say the reality is if you smoke, you won't get any child placed with you. Although those are the guidelines, I think even a 5-6-year-old, local authorities would prefer that you didn't smoke and are unlikely to place. In terms of vaping, what we'd look at in that is usually looking at it as a way of giving up smoking. I mean, it's not, we don't have the set rules on it as we do with smoking, but usually it's, you know, if you're trying to give up smoking and you're using vaping, then that's fine. But we'd have a conversation with you about that.
Okay, thank you. And we had another question about freelance working. So, you know, what's about employee status for freelancers? How does it work for them taking time off?
Yeah, so I mean I'm not sure. I mean, it would depend on your individual situation about your finances there. I mean, quite often if you're self-employed, or I'm not sure what they mean by freelance, then you may need to fund that yourself. I think sometimes we get the question, well, my work is really flexible. I'm having a school-age child. Do I still need the 6 months? And I would say, yes, you do. And that's because the children, even if they're school age, often stay at home with you to build those attachments up for, you know, it could be a couple of months before they go to school. But also, you know, children get sick. Children have lots of school holidays. And although for most children, putting them into, you know, school clubs is absolutely fine, for our children who have had, you know, quite often some loss, trauma, and lots of moves in their life, you know, they really need to have you as, you know, as a parent or one parent to be there, to know that if they're not well, it's you that's going to pick them up from school. In the school holidays, it's you that's looking after them. So we would still look at you kind of taking that 6 months off.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mandy. It's been some really valuable advice there. So I'll just repeat the numbers there for you. If you'd like to find out more, please visit our website at pactcharity.org or call our free phone number 0300 456 4800. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.